Hello everyone, I'm Emily. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about how to balance and manage school and life as someone with a neurodivergent brain. And this video was requested by someone actually in my comments. Their username is Made with Magic, and I'll put the comment on the screen right here. So hopefully this answers some of what they were wondering. If not, always leave more questions down below. Managing and balancing college or any level of school can be challenging for anyone, but for someone with autism or ADHD, there are even additional challenges to it. But with effective strategies and the proper support, it is possible to ease some of these challenges. As an adult who is diagnosed with autism and then also most likely has undiagnosed ADHD and who has recently graduated from college and graduate school, I have a few tips and strategies that I use to get me through all of my schooling and that whole process. My first recommendation would be to create a consistent routine. Routines and schedules can be essential for autistic individuals. Specifically, in my opinion and from my perspective, these are something that are essential to kind of ease stress and just provide stability. This is something that's going to take time and a lot of trial and error to figure out which routines work best for you, because it's going to be individualized to each person. Another aspect that I struggled with a lot was changes in routine and just the challenge of getting into a new routine, because with school and college comes new school years and breaks and new semesters. So that's something I really had a hard time with, was getting back into the routine. It was always a huge transition for me to go from a break to a new semester. One strategy I used to overcome this was to actually start implementing my new routines a week before the actual routine would be implemented. So what I mean by this, for example, if you're starting a new semester of college, you know you're going to get a new course schedule and everything. So the week before that semester would start, which would still be part of your break most likely, I would get up early and kind of follow the same schedule that I would follow if I was in school, if that makes sense. So obviously you're not going to be going to your classes because your classes aren't in session yet, but you can kind of mentally prepare yourself. Okay, I need to be up at this time and I have this class at 8 a.m. And then from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. I have class, and then I have a break, and so on. If it's possible and it's something that you would like to do, you could also drive to the location of your classes or walk there or whatever, depending on your circumstances. I never did this, but if it's something that you think will reduce stress, it might be worth doing. Taking on this new routine a week early gives you time to kind of get comfortable with this transition, and it makes the transition a little less harsh. And I did this most semesters. The only times that I didn't do it is if I had a vacation like right before, like if I went on a trip or something, and I did notice a huge difference in my stress levels and kind of just my overall well-being. I was a lot of times just very overstimulated with the whole transition. My next recommendation is related to assignments or studying for a test or exam. And this recommendation is to take a large task and split it up into smaller parts. This kind of helps ease the overwhelming feeling you get when you have a big project or a big test coming up. Because a lot of times in my own experience, if I had a big project coming up or a test and it wasn't happening for like 2 weeks or so, I would have a hard time kind of getting myself to start it, and then when the due date would approach, I would have to speed through it to get it done. I would always get it done, but the process was very stressful. So there's a couple different ways you could use this strategy. I'll give you 3 different examples of how I use this strategy because it's the same concept, but used 3 different ways. So the first way I used this strategy was when taking an exam. I started this system, I had different versions of it, but this version didn't happen until later in my schooling, actually when I was in physical therapy school. So basically I would take an index card, and maybe I could find some footage of one, but I would take an index card and I would write the name of my exam on the top and then in the lines on the index card, which doesn't have to have lines, but in the lines I would put every single PowerPoint or packet or any sort of notes that I needed to look over for that exam and kind of split it up into different categories. That way it wasn't just one big exam, it was different sections that I could focus on. Then I could kind of pick which things I wanted to focus on each day, and I would check off as I studied or cross them off if I felt like I didn't need to study them anymore. This helped me a lot because at the same time I could see everything in one spot, but it didn't seem like one big task. It was broken down into separate ones, and that's something that was really helpful for me. The second way I would use this strategy is to take a project or a paper or whatever you have to make or write or whatever and break it down into smaller steps. So say you're writing a paper, then step one could be figure out the topic you're writing on. If you already have the topic, then obviously you don't have to do that step. And then the next step could be create an outline for it. And then maybe like create a rough draft and then edit. Like you can even break it down even smaller if you need to. If you want to do like, oh, make an outline, then write a rough draft of the introduction, write a rough draft of the body paragraphs. You could split it into as many little steps as your brain can handle, because some people, they don't need that broken down as much, and other people may want it to be very small steps because any other step may seem too daunting. So I would do this in a number of ways, whether writing it out on a to-do list, typing it out online, some sort of way to write it all out and break it down. And then I would set little due dates for each of those tasks. So it didn't seem like so much was due on the same day. I'd be like, okay, so this is due in 2 weeks. So 3 days from now, I want to have my outline done. 6 days from now, I want to have a very, very rough draft of it done. Things like that. I would kind of like set myself dates out to split it up into smaller, not as daunting tasks. The third way I would use this concept is a little bit different, but I started using this more towards the end of my schooling, which was to take little sticky notes, and you can use any size you want, but I had like the little rectangled ones, and I would basically write out all of the assignments I had to do, either for the day or for the week. It just kind of depended on whatever I was feeling and whatever I could handle seeing at that moment, and I would stick them all to my desk, and then once I would have them done, I would take it off or like cross it out. Usually I would take it off and throw it away so I could see the amount of things on there get smaller and smaller, and that helped me a lot to try to split up all the tasks rather than, I don't know, I needed some sort of visual representation to see them slowly getting done. But this recommendation saved me a lot, because if not, I would find myself almost in that like ADHD paralysis where it's like I can't do anything. If you're at that point, then think of the smallest possible task that you can make something and just try to start with that, because once you kind of get that small task done, you'll often build up momentum, at least in my own experience, build up momentum to finish the rest of the tasks, if that makes sense. I don't know why I always say if that makes sense. It's like a filler word that I always throw in there. Another recommendation I have is to use any free resources that you can find that may enhance your learning experience. There are multiple resources like talk to text if you have issues with typing. There is text to speak if you have issues with reading or comprehension. Resources could even be just looking up a YouTube video to help you understand a topic better. I've done that multiple times. I just need another perspective of explaining something, or I need a visual representation of it, and I look up a YouTube video, and there's so many different resources out there, especially like different videos and such on different topics, and I found that very helpful. I used the text-to-speech, I think it was just an extension on Google Chrome for a while before I had accommodations at school, and I believe it was, I didn't pay any money for it, but I don't know if it's still free. It was free at the time. I believe it should still be free, but basically it allowed you to take any website or whatever with words on it and turn it into, like, it would read it to you basically. And I found that helpful anytime I had to do a lot of reading or look up articles and such. I used that because I comprehend better when I hear words out loud while I'm reading them. So I just found that very helpful. And it takes me too long to read it myself out loud, plus my throat starts to hurt if I'm reading a lot out loud. So that was just one like accommodation I found for myself. That leads me into my next recommendation, which is to try to find some sort of support at your school. So if you have diagnoses, then you can go to like Office of Disabilities at a college if you're at college, or if you're at school, like if you're younger in high school or whatever, then go to like the counselor or the office or whatever, and I'm sure they have a process of getting accommodations. I didn't have a diagnosis until I was in graduate school, so I didn't have any accommodations until graduate school, but even before I had my accommodations, I went to my professors. So I would recommend going to your teachers, counselors, professors, or anything, just asking for any sort of help in any way, and I'm sure they'd be willing to help because their job is to teach you and they want you to have the best learning experience. So just reach out to the people around you at school. You can also reach out to other students who may be having similar struggles if you know of any, and just see what kind of things they are doing or what resources they use. Just really do your best to reach out for help to your teachers, because good teachers want you to learn and they want you to have the best experience. So they're going to do whatever they can to help enhance your experience. Some of the accommodations that I used at school was on my Notability app. There's a feature of recording, so my professors allowed me to record their lectures because I have issues with like auditory processing, and I have a hard time like actually hearing what they're saying and listening while also trying to take notes. So I would try my best to kind of listen and learn in class and don't worry so much about stressing about how fast I'm writing notes. And then I could take time later in my day to re-listen to those notes and write them down. That's just one example of an accommodation. I know that there's more technology out there now that actually like writes out your notes for you. There's a lot of different things. Sometimes they'll have a student in the class write notes to give to a student. There's many different scenarios. And the other main accommodation that I used was wearing earplugs during my exams. This was a game changer for me. I didn't realize how distracted I was or how much effort I was putting into focusing on my exams, and when I started wearing earplugs, it helped a lot. It decreased the amount of time it took me to take exams, and it really decreased my stress levels during my exams. So that is something I would recommend trying out if you haven't tried that yet. I don't see why a teacher would not allow you to, even if you don't have accommodations, as long as you show them they're not like earbuds or whatever, they're actual earplugs. I don't see why they would have an issue with it, so I would hope they would allow you to use those accommodations. My next recommendation, which is an important one, is to make sure you are taking time to take care of yourself and meeting your sensory needs. Self-care is so important to prevent burnout. This will look different for every single person, so find what is best for you, what is going to reduce your stress levels and help refill your cup, what's going to refill your energy after you have a draining day, or make sure your energy is full going into a day. This could look like spending time on a hobby, or it could be taking a sensory break. For me, this could look like listening to music and moving around, dancing, whatever, or it could look like sitting in a dark, quiet room and just with my eyes closed, resting. It kind of just depends on my sensory needs for the day. There's going to be times where I'm more seeking for some sensory input and times when I am overloaded and I need to take a rest from all the sensory input. Last but certainly not least, it is so important to make sure you're giving yourself grace throughout this process. School and college is challenging for anyone, and when you have additional challenges, it can seem almost impossible to stick to routines and to keep up with school and balance school and life. So if you have a bad day or a bad week or a bad month, just do your best to not be so hard on yourself and just go back to your routines. Make adjustments where you need to. Try to get yourself back on track, and don't be afraid to reach out for help if you need it. Reach out to counselors, reach out to teachers, professors, whatever you need. Somebody will be out there to help you get back on track. I struggle with having an all or nothing mindset, and this is still something I'm actively working through every single day. And what I mean by this is if there's one little mistake in my routine, or I'm not getting done what I want to get done, or something throws off my routine for the day, I feel so defeated. I beat myself up over it, and I basically give up for the day. Sometimes, it doesn't always happen, but sometimes I will just be like, well, I guess there's no point in doing anything because it's not going how I planned. So if we reframe our mind and try to work through that all or nothing mindset, then we can really take time and just pause and be like, okay, I understand my plan was messed up, things are not going how I planned. How can I pause right now, take some time for myself, and then make a new plan for the rest of the day? Because we can make a new plan for the rest of the day and maybe not get done exactly what we wanted to, but we can get done some things. And that's better than doing nothing and just completely giving up and rotting for the rest of the day. But like I said, this is easier said than done. It's something that I'm still actively working through. It is hard for us autistic people too to not think that black and white and that all or nothing mindset. It's kind of just how our brains are often wired. So it's a challenge every day to try to work through that and not be so hard on myself when it's not just black and white. So try out these tips and remember to not be so hard on yourself. I know it's easier said than done. Good luck with school, whether you're in college, high school, or even younger. You've got this, and just know you're gonna get through it. And again, do not be afraid to reach out for help if you need it. But that's gonna be all of my tips right now. There are so many other things I could talk about, but if you liked this video and you did find it helpful, then make sure you give it a thumbs up. It really does help out my channel. And comment down below any other questions you have, or maybe some strategies you'd like to share that have worked for you. Subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon to get notified every single time I upload a new video. And if you do decide to stick around, then I'll see you in my next video. Bye. Peace.